Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Good morning and welcome to the show. A lovely morning this morning, and Lord Christopher Monckton of Brenchley, British consultant, policy advisor, writer, columnist and hereditary peer, has arrived in the building. We will be talking to him presently. He spoke at Treacey's Hotel last night about the issues of climate change and other related matters. We're also going to be talking to Joanna Fortune, who's a psychiatrist and a psychotherapist, and to Darren Malone on the students' stress and anxiety levels. Do you think the student levels of stress are high, and how high are they? We want to hear from you. Or if you're a person who's living beside a student house, are you more stressed than the students themselves? We're going to be talking about the possibility of a new cath lab being built at Whitfield, the Whitfield Clinic. And we're also going to be talking about the Dara Fitzpatrick run and grieving for loved ones. Keep your texts and comments coming in. We've got some texts and comments to follow up from yesterday. 083 3333 975. That's our text and WhatsApp number. Or you can call 051 846 123. Now, speaking of grieving for loved ones, what do you do? How do you get through the day when the person that you love immensely, that you may have loved all your life for decades, could be your husband, could be your partner, your wife, your daughter, your father, your granddad, leaves in the morning time to go off and do something, or in the afternoon, and doesn't come back, never comes back? And what if that cause of death is a sudden death that is still being investigated? And on the 16th of July, the Kirwan family in Kilmacthomas suffered a great tragedy. And joining me now is Mary Kirwan-Byrne. Mary, good morning.
Morning, Damien. Good, thanks.
Mary, a lovely morning out in
Kilmacthomas, Damien.
Kilmacthomas, very good. And tell me, you've some children there yourself, just about to go back to school.
I have, yeah. James is returning and going into first class, and my middle daughter then is starting school, and then my smallest one is starting Montessori, so busy.
And
next Monday.
What's your smallest one's name?
Cara.
And I suppose they were all in the apple of the eye of Daddy, were they? Of Oliver, of their granddad?
Oh, they were, absolutely, yeah. And each one of them really, I suppose James being the firstborn, he was, and the boy as well, Dad really adored him. Not saying that he did with all three, but James and him did lots of different things together, a bit of gardening and the whole lot, and Dad was always walking on the greenway with them. He loved the greenway. Because,
some granddads, when they have grandchildren, they kind of maybe take a step back and they say, I don't want to be involved too much in the rearing of these children. I've reared my own children and I don't want to be involved in the rearing of my grandchildren. But your dad, Oliver, he sounds like he was different from that.
Oh, he was, yeah. Dad, obviously, being retired, had the time to kind of spend with the kids. And James, when he was smaller, wouldn't settle in any creche for me or with any childminder. He was one of those children that just, didn't take to a different environment. So kind of my own parents kind of took him over from a young age to allow me to go back to work. And I suppose that's kind of, the bond was there then, from very early on.
And your dad would have driven the lads around a lot and brought them to different places and he would basically babysat them, childminded.
School collection for me. The days I worked 3 days, so the 3 days that he would bring and collect James to school for me, and also collect my small one from the childminder. And he was always there, always available. If I was ever stuck, he'd always say to me, just ring me on the mobile.
And like, you work in the housing department of Waterford Council, so you know how the council works.
I do.
Tell me, what happened on Tuesday, July the 16th?
Dad I had arranged with him for 2 days of that particular week, because I work Monday, Tuesday and Thursday. So for 2 days of that week, the Tuesday and the Thursday, I'd arranged with Dad to bring James to Carriganore, where it was the FAI soccer camp was on, and my husband then, Michael, was off on the Monday, so he was doing the bringing and the collecting on the Monday, but Dad then was doing it on Tuesday, so he brought James in on the Tuesday morning for me and came home, and I said to Mum, even when he came home, it's a really, really good setup there. It's really, well run and well
super setup. Yeah.
And James was very happy going off. And
is James? Does he support any particular soccer team or?
Not yet.
Not yet. He's too young. Yeah, and he just loves it though. And I can imagine him being in the car with your father, chatting about the football. And does your dad like the old soccer, or does he like this? Did he like the sport?
He was a Man City supporter.
Man City supporter. How did that happen? Do you know?
I don't know, to be honest. It's because my husband is an Everton support, so there used to be an awful lot of tic-tac.
A good banter, yeah. So your dad...
I'm not actually quite sure how he came about to be a Man City fan, but he was. And
so your dad, Oliver Kirwan, 75 years of age, from Kilmac. He knows the roads very well. He's in the car with your little boy, James. And they're going to or coming from...
This was then in the afternoon. Then Dad said to Mum, obviously it was 2:30, because the camp was running from 10:30 until 3.
Yeah.
That was the times of the camp. So Dad said to Mum at 2:30, I better go now for James. So off he went. He was actually doing some gardening. He was cutting his hedges outside, and he said to my mum, I'll go now and pick up James. So I know from speaking to Tommy in Carriganore, he was there running the camp, and he spoke to Dad for just a few minutes.
That'd be Tommy Griffin, I'd say, is it? I know Tommy.
Indeed.
Yeah, lovely man, yeah. Tommy. Yeah,
indeed. And so Dad was there, ready and waiting for 3:00, and he handed James over to Dad, and they were in the car and got in the car, and one or two people saw Dad actually at the roundabout there, just as when you come out of Carriganore and you give way obviously to the traffic coming from Waterford, coming from your right as you're coming out. So one or two would have seen Dad coming out of there. So just heading out as normal, because I knew Dad would find just going as far as Carriganore, there was no having to go into town, or it was a kind of a straight run from home to there and back. And he loved anyway doing those kind of different little spins and everything for me. But so they're just on their way out then, obviously straight out home. And at about, it was somewhere between kind of 3:15 and 3:16, which it would be, he was out kind of very quick. It's kind of a straight run out. That's when the accident occurred. And I believe, obviously, it's under investigation, but that car was hit by a car that was travelling from the Dungarvan side. Daddy was waiting in the turning lane there, because I would often say to Dad, going back over the last few years, Dad, because the road with the sheer volume and everything, I would have said to him, maybe continue on. I said, don't be cutting across there, because I just see it myself. I travel the road every week when I'm going to work, so I would see them, but I'd be aware of the dangers. But Dad would be taking that route with the last 50 years, and he would just continue to do that. And when he was waiting then in the lane to exit, that's when
the crash happened.
Yeah.
And what did you hear afterwards? Like, did you get the phone call, or what happened? I was in work on the Tuesday, and I didn't have my mobile on me because I was in another office downstairs and in our building. And my mum rang me first to say that she had heard that there was an accident at Carroll's Cross, because Mum listens to WLR, so she, in fairness, they had it on very quickly about the accident, and she said there's no sign of Dad home. But I actually said to her, like, Dad probably got caught up. I said, Mum, in the queue. I was just automatically assumed that, he, due to the crash, obviously, and with a diversion in place, I said, more than likely, Mum, I said, that's what happened. So then, a few minutes later, then my husband rang me. He had gotten a call from one of the mothers in James's class, my son James's class. One of the witnesses actually at the scene rang this lady, and she'd know we'd know her, we'd have her number. And Michael said to me, to my husband, I'm making my way down. He was working in Dungarvan that day. He said, I'm making my way down to Carroll's Cross. He said, your dad and James have been in an accident. So with that then, and that's all he said. So I rang Mum back then to say that they had been in an accident, but I didn't know the extent, of it, or didn't know the extent of the injuries. So Michael rang me back yet again then, a few minutes later, and did you know? Did you kind of? Oh God, what was going through your mind?
Well, at first I thought, okay, I said, right, Dad will probably have a broken leg, or I could kind of picture maybe facial injuries, broken arm, or I was kind of saying to myself, right, and I know I'd be conscious of his age as well, and Dad would have a few health complaints, but he was managing them really well. And you were thinking of James as well, obviously. As well, yeah, straight off, yeah, as well, because obviously when the Gardaí had contacted Michael, they didn't mention anything about it. They just said you need to make your way down to Carroll's Cross. So obviously I rang Mum on foot of Michael's call, and Mum just said she had this kind of sense she just said a weakness kind of came over her, that she knew it wasn't going to be good. And with that, then Michael told me to make my way out to the hospital. He didn't tell me anything at that stage on the phone, because he wanted to obviously tell me himself when I got out there. And it was a really warm day. It was really high summer day, and so I packed up all my bits and pieces and made my way out then to the hospital, and parked up and walked around to A&E, and then I was met by Michael there, who told me there that Dad hadn't made it, but that I was to go in and into A&E to see James.
And when he said those words, indescribable.
Yeah, it's this feeling. It's hard to describe it. My heart, your heartbeat, and everything. It was just, because I kind of wasn't expecting it. Really, I kind of wasn't. Like I kind of knew, okay, right, there, that Dad would definitely have injuries. But when you hear it said to you, it's one of those situations. Nothing prepares you for it. Nothing prepares you. And I said to myself, how can this be happening? I was in work up to kind of 20 minutes ago. I'm out here now being told this, and then to see James as well. And they were sorting him out. It was like one of the scenes that you see sometimes if you're watching ER or that, but obviously, thankfully, James, I knew, and they were very reassuring to me, I knew he was going to be okay.
Just hang on there a second, Mary, because I know it's emotional, and we'll be back in 1 second.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Mary Kirwan-Byrne talking about the July the 16th, the day her dad died in the car crash at Carroll's Cross, and James was in the hospital, lying in the hospital bed. You were just telling us, Mary, was he conscious? He was conscious. He really had taken to at the crash scene in Carroll's Cross. There was one of the female paramedics. When they arrived, she was literally really the only person that he kind of really took to, and she, cared for him really well. And obviously when his dad got to the scene, they travelled in together in the ambulance. But yeah, I know he was. And when I came, they said to him, Mom is here. He kind of just sort of looked at me. But he was, they were really, they gave him such great care, such great attention. He went for his MRI and his X-rays, etc., etc. And thankfully, his injuries were all non-life-threatening. All his injuries were to the mouth and to the jaw area. That's the area that was affected. And just remind me again, how old is James?
He's 6.5. He'll be 7 in November.
Is he a brave little boy?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know at the crash, I know with the impact of where James would have hit the granddad's seat, that's where James got the full kind of force, we'll say, driven forward and hit granddad's seat, and then ended up down directly underneath granddad's seat, because at the crash scene at Carroll's Cross, a number of witnesses have told me when they got to Dad's car, they didn't know he was in it. They could only see Dad. But Dad was still able to indicate, to kind of look behind. He was kind of sort of, pointing kind of behind. And they were able to, and then they could see himself. He was literally, that's where he had ended up,
So, was your father, was he alive at that stage, do we know?
Yeah, he was.
And
Dad was alive for about 20 minutes,
and
20 to 25.
And he was pointing towards James, where he had effectively, the way the crash happened, he'd effectively protected James in a way.
Absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely. And that would have been Dad always looking out for, always looking out for the grandchildren. And I think Dad probably held on, like once Dad knew that James was going to be okay, he would have been happy at that.
The shock then, the funeral, the pain, and then your poor mother.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. All of that. And Mum and Dad would have been always together every day, just at home, doing the gardening. My mother doesn't drive, so Dad would be bringing her down to the shops here, or he'd bring her to Dungarvan or wherever they'd be going. So from that point of view, I suppose it's the suddenness and the tragicness of it all that makes it very difficult. And and none of us got to say goodbye to Dad. That's what kind of I find for me, as well as the rest of my family, we find that hard. Like, he left that day, and Dad is fully entitled to come home, return home as normal, but he didn't.
My heart goes out to your mum, especially to Mammy.
Yeah.
Is that a phone? Do you want to get that?
Sorry, yeah, I will. Sorry, Jamie. Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's still so raw. It's too early. But how's your mammy?
She's not too bad. She's not too bad. She keeps her head up, as she said, and she gets out every day. Which helps, as she said, and I think talking to people, she finds as well, or I'd find it as well, by talking to people, and that that people are there for you, and people have been great.
They have, and a lot of people have texted in, yeah, and
the messages of support and the volume of mass cards that both Mum and I have gotten, has been huge, and we're, it's really comforting to know that people are thinking of you. And
how many years were your mum and dad married?
41.
And best friends?
In August. Yeah, best friends, yeah. And as I said, the two of them, they were really good together, the two of them, and doing so much for myself, helping out myself as well, and especially when the grandchildren came along, and always pottering around at home in the garden and bits and pieces.
And how is James's recovery going?
Very good. He is going to Crumlin in the morning to have all his braces in the mouth taken out, which will be great because he has been on a liquid diet with the last couple of weeks. So he's going to, the first thing he said to me is, "Mom, when the braces are taken out, I'm having a burger." That's the first thing he said to me. Because he hasn't really been able to eat kind of those particular, chew, and so he's going to, he'll enjoy that. And I suppose as a thank you, which is really nice, he's due back to school next Monday, but as a gift, the FAI contacted my husband last week. So on Monday coming, he's going up to Dublin, up to Abbottstown, up to the headquarters of the FAI, and he's going to be meeting the Irish soccer team.
Oh.
So that's something that he looked forward to.
Your father would be laughing at that.
He would. He would indeed. Absolutely. Yeah, he would. He'd be very proud of him.
What needs to be done with the Carroll's Cross junction?
Well, I believe that, well, definitely traffic calming measures, but I also believe the speed limit there needs to be reduced. That's something that I know it's on a main busy junction, or busy. Yeah,
but it can be. What about a roundabout? Should there be a roundabout on it?
I'm not sure. It would be very hard, I would say, to put in a roundabout there with all the different junctions that are off it. Again, I'm not an expert.
I know, but surely some of these experts will be able to work out something. Like it's, as you say, the cause of the investigation is still being investigated. The cause of the crash is still being investigated, but it's a death trap.
It is, and as I said, numerous people have mentioned it to myself and my mother. Since Dad's passing, of the near misses that they have had there. And I know, would you believe, a week after, there was a smaller incident there the following Tuesday in the evening time. And I know in July then of last year, there was another serious incident there, but just other people have said it to me there, even up to recently, with the volume. And I'm not sure if people, when they're travelling, that if they're aware of the kind of between the turning lanes and the arrows and that hatched area that's there. There's so many different junctions. Then the traffic, entering Dawn Meets and exiting, and yeah, it's now as I understand it, actually, I believe the TII have now requested plans.
That's the transport
what measures
infrastructure Ireland, yeah, but it takes sometimes a death for that to happen, and that's wrong.
I know, yeah, no, look, yeah, I know, it is wrong.
But you're not going to let this lie, Mary.
No, I won't, and even for Dad's sake and that, and hopefully when Minister Ross comes down, that I will, approach. And in fairness, I know the councillors in the Comra area,
they've been pushing for safety measures,
yeah.
And I know you've contacted John Halligan's office and Minister Ross when he gets his electric car charged up. Hopefully he'll come down and meet you. Listen, we'll keep in touch, and as I said, it's one of the things that we've been campaigning on here in the programme. I'll be out there during the week doing something on it. So, Mary, say hello to your mum for us.
I will indeed.
Your husband Michael and James, and it's going to be another emotional week for you with the lads back at school, especially on Monday now. Yeah,
it will. But I suppose what I'm trying to say, life goes on. You have to try and find the strength then to just keep going. And Dad would want me to be, continuing on with my everyday duties. Okay.
Mary, thanks. God bless.
No problem. Thanks, Damien.
You're listening to Mary there. Cheryl has said, just listening to Mary on the radio, her dad was an absolute gentleman. It was a tragic accident, sending all the best. That is from James. That's from Cheryl. most definitely a roundabout is needed. I was turning right, stopped at the correct lane, waiting to turn. A car oncoming was turning left at the same turn. The car behind him overtook him and was heading towards me, entering my lane where I was stopped and missed me by inches. I had my 6-year-old daughter with me at the time. It is a deadly crossing. Damien, with respect to that lady, it's very, very sad to hear what she has to say. Jason Murphy has been on to say a special tribute to Mary, one of the most caring and compassionate members of staff at the council, a brave and beautiful family. Others talking about being involved in near accidents in Carroll's Cross, and any time they hear something about it, that it is horrendous. Damien, if that road was in Dublin or Cork, there would be an intersection built. Lord Christopher Monckton, when you hear stories of tragedy, it affects, doesn't matter what part of the world you come from.
It's always very sad when an unexpected death happens like that. And road accidents, unfortunately, are still quite a commonplace way of that happening. However much training you give people, you can just lose your attention for a moment. We've all done it, and suddenly you have an accident, and sometimes it can be fatal. And so my heart goes out to Mary. There is nothing more tragic than when that happens and somebody's good life is suddenly taken away. The only comfort I can offer is that no doubt the good Lord wanted to have him to himself, and therefore we can pray for his soul and pray, of course, for Mary as well.
We are going to be taking more of your texts and comments, 083 33 975, and talking to Lord Christopher Monckton in the next minute.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
Welcome back to the programme. Congratulations to Mary on how well she spoke. Her father Oliver was a gentleman and very well thought of in Kilmac. Should never have happened. There should be changes to that crossing. Does it take someone to die for people to fix it? My heart goes out to that lady, says another person. And Imelda Bowdron has been on as well. Damien, it's dangerous overtaking on the roads. That's the problem with the roads. That's from Martin in Stradbally, and other people have been ringing in. Bill says there's another place on the Ring Road, the Six Crossroads and the Tramore roundabouts traffic. Every evening it's going to be very, very dangerous. Call 051 846 123. Text 083 33 975. Now we have a very interesting man in the studio whom you may want to send in texts and comments about. I'm sure you're well used to the texts. Is that right?
They're often very rude, so bring it on.
I'm just talking off air about Alistair Campbell. We had him on the show here previously. He used to call you what?
He used to call me a fascist and I called him a communist. We got on just fine. I mean, he was in fact a very professional guy. We disagreed. He was a totalitarian, I was a libertarian. And so we often found ourselves going hammer and tongs in the studio. But no, he's a lovely guy.
Yeah, I remember it reminds me of, I think, an interview with Paul Foote, another socialist, communist over the years, and he was being interviewed on television with another, let's say a Tory, I don't know who it was.
Yes.
But they basically accused each other of being traitors to their own class.
Oh, this is a great game, yes. Of course, I belong to the upper class, and so, no, I'm not a traitor to my class, certainly.
You represent your class well.
Well, that's not for me to say. But what is interesting is that the upper class and the working class in Britain tend to be on the same side against the middle class. So we kind of squeeze them from both directions.
Is that a kind of a Peaky Blinders approach to life? Do you know Peaky Blinders?
That's absolutely what it is. Yes, you've got it in one. And the poor old middle class, they never quite see us coming.
Explain to our listeners, please, Lord Christopher Monckton, who are you?
Well, I am a peer of the realm, so you're in the presence of greatness. But in my case, it's only inherited. I chose my parents carefully. I have done nothing to merit my title, but I use it to argue for the little guy against the big guy. I'm never allowed to use it for myself. And so if I want to have a row with somebody who's sold me something at too big a price or at too poor a quality, I cease to be Lord Monckton. I'm just Christopher. And you may call me Christopher too. Once you've gone down on one knee, bowed very low, touched your forelock and said, my lord, would your lordship be so gracious as to allow me to address your lordship? And we'll get on fine. But The point is that if you're a peer these days, it's a title. I knew when I was first told at the age of 12 that one day I would probably end up as Lord Monckton. I knew that somebody, before I got there, would change all that. Because already it made no sense to me that just because of who you were born the son of, you should automatically have the right to legislate and be deferred to. So when, sure enough, Tony Blair came along in 1999 and in the House of Lords Act abolished the right of nearly all the hereditary peers to sit, including my father, who was there at the time, I wasn't surprised, and I wasn't particularly disappointed. It's just one of those things. But what I've done in my life is mostly I've been a journalist, an advisor to Margaret Thatcher as Prime Minister, and more recently I've been studying the question of whether global warming is a problem, and on the Brexit question, I'm firmly on the Brexiteer side of that case, because I think we need to get our democracy back, and the European Union has the appearance of democracy in the European Parliament, but that can't even bring forward a bill. All the real power is in the hands of the unelected commissars. That's the German official title for the commissioners, and a very revealing one. And they have too much power. And with my noble friend Lord Stockton, who had a seat on the Constitutional Convention about 25 years ago, I tried very hard by putting down a series of amendments to take power away from the unelected commissars appointed by each government and transferred into the hands of the elected European Parliament. And I wanted to have the European Parliament that we all elect choose a government from among whichever the majority faction was after each election. And that government would then run what is now the Commission. The commissars would become merely civil servants, like permanent secretaries in the government departments in Britain. That was our plan. But every time we put forward amendments to the European Constitution to make it democratic, the commissars, who didn't want to give up their absolute power, refused to accept them. And because they wouldn't accept them, the European Parliament couldn't debate them. That was how anti-democratic the whole thing was, and it was only after going through that experience that I changed my view of the European Union and realised that it was anti-European because it was anti-democratic. It was ancient Greece that gave us the name and the concept of democracy, that the people should rule through the ballot box. And the European Union is the one institution in Europe that elaborately denies the people that opportunity.
You are an extremely experienced interviewee, and you've also interviewed many people in the past. Looking at your biog and doing some research, you've written many papers about climate change, about politics. We don't have an awful lot of time this morning to debate and discuss, so I'm not going to get involved in a point-scoring exercise in any way. What would you say if somebody said, looking at all the things you've had to say about homosexuality, about climate change, about different things, that you're a despicable man?
Well, of course, everybody's entitled to their opinion, and those who are on the totalitarian side of these debates will tend to use much stronger language about us than we will about them. We're much more concerned with the issues than we are with the personalities. They're much more concerned with the personalities than they are with the issues.
We'll try and shoot the messenger.
So, absolutely. And this has been a technique which was invented, in fact, by Joseph Goebbels. And when the Russians, who invaded Berlin in 1945, found all the records, and they found how Goebbels had turned the most civilized nation in Europe into a nation of monsters, the way he'd done it was by teaching all the party members to trash the personal reputations of those who were effective in opposing Nazism. The moment the communists saw this, they set up a disinformation directorate which recruited 1 million willing Western unpaid communists over the next 33 years under Ion Mihai Pacepa, its director, whom I know. And he came out to the West and told us everything, which is how we know about it. And that's why the left still concentrates on attacking the messenger, as you put it, rather than dealing with the message.
Could it happen again, do you think?
What, communism?
Communism or fascism?
Well, the trouble is that there's always these two sides in politics, the libertarian side and the totalitarian side. And the communists and fascists are, to my mind, exactly the same. They are the totalitarians. They think they know best, and only their view should prevail. And increasingly on climate change, for instance, one isn't allowed on any medium. The BBC will not allow any climate skeptic on the air anymore. They have rewritten their editorial guidelines to say, yes, we are required by law to be impartial, but on this subject we have decided that we don't have to be impartial anymore. And this is increasingly happening around the world.
Not illegal, what they're doing?
Well, it is indeed illegal.
And why hasn't it been challenged in the courts by
because,
somebody like yourself?
Because unfortunately the BBC has the taxpayers' money at its back, and we don't. And so the cost of taking such a huge case, which would fundamentally challenge the BBC and challenge the climate change question, all the green groups who are largely funded by taxpayers would pile in money. The BBC would pile in money. It'd be extremely difficult to fight it.
Is there a conspiracy going on, do you think, against your side?
No, what there is a coalition of vested interests. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a few people chuckling in the corner of some darkened room somewhere over a smoke-filled fire saying, how can we plot to take over the world? It's not like that. It's not the Bilderberg group and the bankers and all the other people that the people with tinfoil hats get worried about. What it is the left, of course, find this a mesmerically attractive option because it allows them to introduce every kind of totalitarian regulations about what kind of light bulbs you can have and how much tax you should pay and how many miles you can drive. And now the Bord na Móna has suddenly fired several thousand people who were happily digging peat because they say that burning the peat is going to contribute to global warming, for heaven's sake, which is complete nonsense.
Sean has texted in, you were a Thatcher advisor. Did you advise Thatcher on the shoot-to-kill policies in the occupied 6 counties? Sorry, I may have to switch off the radio station now.
Well, no, I didn't do that side of things, I'm glad to say. What I will say is this, that one of the most difficult things that governments had to do for the 30 years during which the IRA and various clones of it were active was to try to keep the peace in the north. And I would like to pay tribute at this point to one of the greatest statesmen I've ever come across, and that was Garret FitzGerald, who in the one-page Anglo-Irish agreement made an enormous and very statesmanlike concession in that he said that we in Ireland will no longer claim sovereignty over the whole of Ireland, even though that's in our constitution, if in return the British government will agree to have a cup of tea with us from time to time. And that broke the IRA, and it was a most marvellous thing.
Do you think it's justifiable in any time for the state, in whatever form it takes, the army, for example, to shoot people?
I never like that. I'll be quite honest with you. But the state somehow has to use troops in extreme circumstances to protect its own citizens from terrorists who will go around shooting them. And it's always difficult to deal with terrorism. And always, if the state puts a foot wrong, if you have a Bloody Sunday, then forever the state will be criticised, and unfortunately such criticism may even be justified.
And in terms of the Bloody Sunday that you mentioned there yourself...
I mean, that is something on which I haven't studied. Thank goodness I didn't have to study the evidence on that. But it didn't look all that good to me, I have to say. And so I bitterly regret. Yeah, exactly. I just don't think that was right. And the army can always argue that when they're under a lot of pressure, they may think that somebody is armed and they reach for their pocket, for instance, and in fact they're getting a handkerchief. But the army sometimes feels it can't take the risk. When you're a squadron, you're under that kind of pressure. It isn't easy to get it right. So one has to see it a bit from both sides. But the general rule, of course, must be, no, you don't go around shooting citizens. You don't even go around shooting terrorists if you can avoid it. But if a terrorist is about to set off a bomb, or you have a credible information that he might, then you may have to shoot him. And sometimes it may have been an unjustifiable shooting.
Because John Stalker, a journalist, as you know, a previous journalist, and he wrote about the shoot-to-kill policy that was in Northern Ireland for many years.
Yes.
So there was indisputable evidence that there were certain elements of the state apparatus involved in shoot-to-kill policy.
Well, when we say shoot-to-kill, I think we've got to be a little careful. The rules of engagement, if you're in the military, you have a thing called rules of engagement. And there were no rules of engagement at any time that said you can just go around shooting people whenever you think it right. The rules of engagement, typically when dealing with terrorism, say this. They say that if there is a credible terrorist threat, that a terrorist may have a gun or be triggering a bomb, and you know who that person is, and if your officers have said that if you see that person and he appears to be about to trigger a bomb or reach for a gun, then you may shoot him, and if you have to shoot him to kill, then you should do that, then that, I think you would accept, is legitimate. But it does depend on making sure that the intelligence you've got on that guy has been properly obtained.
And it depends how you define a terrorist. So a terrorist in one person's mind may not be in somebody else.
Well, no, if they have got a gun and they're going to shoot someone with it, then that's the definition. The army doesn't get into politics. What it says is that if we have credible intelligence that there is somebody who, for whatever reason, you can call it terrorism or you can call it giving people flowers, but if they have got a gun, or if they are about to trigger a bomb, then they're going to kill your citizens, innocent citizens, improperly, and it is the duty of the security services to do their best to stop that. And in those circumstances, and in those circumstances only, it can be, depending on the strength of the intelligence, legitimate to shoot that person before he shoots someone else.
And that goes to the heart of many of the issues that you focus on in terms of totalitarianism and representation of government on the streets. And, for example, a texter has texted in, and to nationalism as well, because these things come up. The British raped, pillaged and murdered their way across the planet, and they call other terrorists. What a bunch of baloney.
Well, the Spanish philosopher George Santayana took the view that the world never had sweeter masters. That was his phrase for the British Empire, because although there were some disfiguring incidents, one thinks of the massacre of Amritsar, the Black Hole of Calcutta, there were some like that, but they were relatively rare, thank God.
They were aberrations,
and well, I think they were. I think if you look at it in the round, they were aberrations. I mean, for instance, my great-grandfather was the model for the film Sounders of the River, and he was a district commissioner in Kenya, and he was so loved by the Yoruba tribe, because he helped them in various ways, that they elected him an honorary member of it. And this was very much the way the British tended to govern the empire. It wasn't by the jackboot, it wasn't by the gun. It was very much by trying to work with the indigenous populations to help them to advance. I mean, there are some wonderful speeches by George Nathaniel Curzon, for instance, when he became Viceroy of India. And he went round India during his first year saying to all the princes and all the councils of state in all the different Indian states, we are not here as overlords. We are here, in fact, as your servants. We are here to try to help you. And there was a very strong strand of that throughout the British Empire. Am I saying the British Empire should therefore be brought back? Well, you sometimes look at particularly sub-Saharan Africa, and one thinks how sad it is that governments arguably are a lot worse there than they were when we or Portugal or France were running those countries. But does that mean that colonialism is a good idea? No.
You
not
truly are a proud and very eloquent representative of your class. Can you tell me, please, is Brexit going to happen on October the 30th?
How long is a piece of string? That's the kind of question that is.
20 seconds.
20 seconds. The answer is Boris Johnson is cleverer than you think. He is negotiating little micro deals on all the areas that might otherwise cause disruption when Brexit happens on October the 31st. Agriculture, a big one for Ireland. Motor manufacturer, where there are big tariffs imposed by the EU. That's why they're a problem. And he's negotiating those micro deals so that when we get to the 31st, even if there were no big deal, there'll be enough little deals to stop disruption. That's what's going to happen, and then we'll do the big deal afterwards, but nobody will get hurt in the meantime.
So you think there will be an exit on November the 1st?
I think that if that strategy succeeds, there will be, and I think there's a good chance it will.
Lord Christopher Monckton, thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Now at 30 seconds after 11, here's Liz with the news. Liz?
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to mulliganspharmacy.com. Life's a beach with Mulligan's Pharmacies. Open late on the Dunmore Road and Intramore.
Now we're going to be talking to Kirsten mate Maher in a minute, live from Tralee. Firstly, a couple of messages and texts that have come in. 083 333 975, our text and WhatsApp number. Call Déise Today on 051 846 123. Good morning, Damien. Could I say well done to the people of Polbury? I passed pass along there on my way to work. There's loads of hanging baskets. Beautiful. Makes the streets look great. It is a pleasure. And that is from Sharon. Damien, Lord Monckton came on and did a talk at Treacey Hotel called The Apocalypse is Cancelled last night. Damien, there's no longer a debate about climate change. The science is clear. The debate now is the actions we need to take across society to mitigate against the worst effects of climate change. We shouldn't be giving these views a platform any more than we should take seriously arguments about racial supremacy or the earth being flat. That is from Councillor Mark O'Cohasig. And we're going to have Mark on, or Susan Gallagher, because Susan texted in as well. Very disappointed to see Damien giving time to a climate change denier. There's consensus among at least 97% of scientists that humans are causing climate change. If you want a balanced debate, you should also be interviewing at least 30 scientists who argue the opposite point of view. And yes, Susan, we will have you on the programme shortly. Damien, India was one of the richest countries in the world before Britain arrived. The country was raped of resources. The idea of a benevolent empire is nonsense, and that from James Doherty. Damien, your guest is ignorant of potential for peat cutaway bogs to be rehabilitated into carbon-absorbing fens. Carbon farming will yield more value than extracting peat for fuel. One word, the blackened hands, the legacy of the British in Northern Ireland. That is from Kathleen. Now we have Kristen Maher on the line from Tralee. Good morning, Kristen.
Hello, Damien. How are you?
Good, thanks. You don't want to talk about climate change, no?
No, do you know what? I'm actually grand. Sorry, my voice is going here. I'm sitting here having breakfast with my Rose Centre coordinators, Vicky and Stephen. We're missing Owen because he's at home in Waterford, but I also have our 2018 London Rose Bronya Hawks here as well. She's sitting beside me as well. So we're having a mimosa.
Lovely. How has your year been?
It's been fantastic. It's been a whirlwind. I can't believe it's a year. It only feels like about 2 months, to be fair. But the amount of stuff that I did, I suppose you'd need a year to get it all done.
And tell us, what's the crack like down there now today?
Oh, well, we're having mimosas now at the moment, so the crack is the crack's going 90 now at the moment. But I have a couple of bits to get done during the day, and then straight into hair and makeup, and then the night kicks off at about 7:30. So yeah, I'm slowly wilting, Damien. Some
people say that being a Rose of Tralee, it does affect your life because you form friendships that will last with you forever. And then for others, it's just something that they sort of say, I've done that, it's been part of my life. Obviously, it's too early for you to say which way it's going to go for you.
Oh, I think it's very clear the way that it's going to go for me. I mean, like with my year, we're all so close. We've weddings coming up and different events popping up, and I'm going back to Texas. We've actually still selections next year. We have the Texas selection, Offaly selection, Waterford selection. So we'll all be still, hanging out together for the next for the rest of our lives. People come back every year. We have different reunions and stuff. I mean, the other night, some of the years have their 5-year reunion, and people keep coming back. So I'll be directly involved in the Waterford Centre now because I'm not really giving them a choice, and I'll be coming back to Tralee every year. So it's amazing. It's really fun. Okay,
so there's sort of money to be made out of it, is there?
Money? Sorry?
Like in the sense that you can maybe get a job out of it from it, or in terms of organising, like somebody that organises the different areas or different events in every area. I suppose you don't do it out of charity.
No, it's not a charity, but it's a voluntary thing. So, like the people who run our centre, Vicky, Owen, and Stephen, are voluntary, and they put in a lot of work, and it's just purely for the love of the festival and the love of the crack. Yeah. Because obviously you can't do things for free. You have to put bread on the table. What do you think you'll be doing in the future to put bread on the table? I'm not sure yet. I don't like making decisions, Damien, to be fair. So I'm just going to see how it goes and just carry on when I get home. So I don't know. We'll see. You never know where you'll find me.
Media, PR?
Yeah, perhaps. I'd like to go in that direction, but I'm not quite sure where I slot in or fit in yet. So I'm kind of going to keep my options open and see if that pops up and maybe start going looking and seeing what would be a good idea. But I'm not quite sure how to get into that area or where I'd like to be as well, because I don't end up doing something I hate.
Yeah, I'd say there's a career in television for you.
Oh God, I'd actually love that now, but I'll get over tonight anyway and see what's going on. There might be something in the pipeline, you never know.
Oh, no, go on, tell us.
Oh God, no, I couldn't be telling you now, Damien.
Go on, nobody's listening. Go on, tell us.
No, I don't know, but I just I'd love to get into the media in some sort, but I'd like to be able to do something fun, serious. I'm not a very serious person, Damien.
Are you in some sort of light discussions?
Yeah, light discussions, you know yourself.
No, I don't actually. Go on, tell us.
No, I'll be back with WLR now in the next couple of weeks. You can take a look at me.
You can fill in for me, no hassle whatsoever. Listen, Kirsten, have a great night tonight. Say hello to the other people there you mentioned, because I know them, and your family. And congratulations on a fabulous year. And you must be very happy and sad at the same time.
I'm delighted. Look, I'm looking forward to it. It's everything. All good things have to come to an end at the end of the day, and I'm looking forward to handing it over now. There's some amazing talent on the stage last night, and I can't wait to see tonight. So God help the poor judges who have to make a decision, because I can't even. People keep asking me, "Oh, who's your favourite?" I couldn't even. I don't know. I don't have a favourite. Everyone's so different. It's fantastic.
That's it. Kirsten mate Maher, thanks for taking our call. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, and enjoy tonight. Matt Shanahan. Are you into the Rose of Tralee?
I wouldn't say I'm into it, Damien, but I have to say Kirsten gave us a bit of support last year to Hand on Heart, which we were very grateful for, and I think she's been a great ambassador for Waterford, I have to say.
Do you watch it?
I certainly would tune into it now. I wouldn't watch all of it, but I do plug in and plug out just to see what's happening.
Is it on at home?
Yeah, it's on at home, actually. Yeah,
and is it a case that you sort of, I might have something else to do while this is on, or...?
Well, I think the girls in my house might be more plugged into it. I'd kind of come in and go out and see a bit of it, but I must say she did very well last year, and I think it was great that Waterford finally had a very good representative and a successful one in the last number of years last year. Yeah.
Did you hear our previous interviewee?
I only barely caught the bare end of it. Was about the Carroll's Cross junction, is it?
We had a piece about Carroll's Cross earlier, and then we were talking to Lord Christopher Monckton of Brenchley, talking about climate change.
I didn't, but I watched a video last night, and just on something to do with plastics, and there was a really telling statistic, which is that by 2050 there will be more weight of plastic in the world's ocean than there will be weight of fish and mammals in the sea. So I think we should all maybe reflect on that and ask ourselves, where are we going as a world and as a species?
I think the time of reflection is nearly past. That's what the scientists are telling us.
Well, I did a good bit of work in this space a number of years ago, Damien, in terms of plastics to fuels, and I have to say at the time the response from government was absolutely pathetic, and we need to change that. Absolutely, we need to change it.
There's a big political push at the minute, and we saw it briefly in the last local elections regarding the Greens, and we've had a lot of people texting in this morning, and the Green agenda. RT's doing a big thing now in October about it. Is it something you, as a local representative, Matt Shanahan, independent member of Waterford City and County Council, would be worried about, in the sense that the debate may just become about green issues? Or do you think green issues should be central?
Absolutely, green issues will have to be central. We are not going to survive the next 100 years, it looks like, unless we do something very major. We have to change our lifestyles, and it comes really down to the micro. It's not just the macro. It's not just about what governments can do. I was just looking the other day, for instance, the packaging that attaches to beer cans. We know the damage that they do in the marine environment, and there's been no efforts made as yet by any manufacturing company to come out and change that. I welcome what SuperValu announced recently and what Aldi announced regarding plastic packaging, but I think we as consumers have to really change our habits. We have to demand an end to plastic in terms of packaging and foodstuffs.
And what about people that say, no, that's not going to make a difference?
Of course it'll make a difference.
The science is wrong.
Of course it'll make a difference. Anything that reduces the fossil burden will make a difference. People have to wake up to where we are, and we can't, unfortunately. There are some issues which people can sit on the sidelines and say, this doesn't affect me. Unfortunately, this is going to affect everybody, and it affects the generations to come. If you're worried about your kids, you've got to become involved in this issue.
Is there going to be a new cath lab built at Whitfield?
Yes, there are certainly plans afoot there, and I think I'm hoping that the CEO of Whitfield will be able to come into WLR soon and announce where they are going, but certainly they are progressing on a cath lab at Whitfield and a new coronary care unit, amongst other things. They have a very exciting portfolio of development to do, upwards of €70 million to be spent in coming years at UPMC Whitfield. I think this is really to be welcomed. It's a huge statement of intent and support for all of South East Medical Services, cardiology included.
If they build a second cath lab? What is planning application being put in?
There's no planning permission required. It's within the scope of the building itself, so they don't need to have planning permission. And the understanding
is that the process has started.
The process has started, and tenders are going to be issued shortly for the development of same. And I would hazard a guess and say we will see a cath lab in Whitfield. I would hope certainly by the early part of next year.
Is there a possibility then that the second cath lab at University Hospital Waterford will not go ahead if they build a cath lab at Whitfield?
No, this will have no effect on the Waterford, on the public system whatsoever, okay?
Are you sure?
Absolutely.
Remember the radiology thing?
No, this is a diagnostic cath lab.
That?
I do remember all of that, but this is a diagnostic cath lab.
Just remind people what happened when the second...
Well, I think people need to reflect on something here, okay? We have a very extensive radiotherapy contract between University Hospital Waterford and Whitfield Clinic. It does amazing numbers. There's a large number of people in the community who have benefit from the radiotherapy services. But at present, under the National Treatment Purchase Fund, for instance, 1,700 patients will be treated under the radiotherapy NTPF.
And Whitfield are making a massive amount of money out of the health service, out of the lack of services at the public hospital.
But Whitfield have the ability and they have the money. They're a non-profit, Damien. They're putting in their own money. Remember, Whitfield is a 20 billion, UPMC is a 20 billion euro dollar company worldwide, one of the largest healthcare companies here, okay?
And you're saying it's a not-profit company?
I'm saying they certainly are. They are profit generated. The reason they're in
business is to make money.
Of course they're in business to make money, but they're one of the largest community. They give back very large sums of money in the US and they give it back in Ireland. And I have no problem.
I'm not disputing that. Yeah. I'm just saying we have this potential that a private hospital is going to make an awful lot more money because of the lack of public services. Well,
that may be an argument, but all I would say to you is just look at the figures that came out yesterday, okay? 650 million a year for the next 10 years in order to try and take private healthcare out of the public system. And I agree with you that we need a single tier of service. I agree in equal healthcare for all, but private hospitals are here. There's 19 private hospitals in the healthcare system at the moment, and people would be absolutely lunacy to think that they cannot survive into the future. This is about cooperative working and about using the skill sets of the public and the private in partnership. We shouldn't be in competition in healthcare in this country. I accept that private hospitals make money privately, and they do so by doing a lot of maybe low-level diagnostic work, and certainly that is an issue.
The most profitable operations. For example, eyes, okay?
Yep.
Cataracts.
Yep.
You can get a cataract done in 20 minutes.
You can
charge Whitfield. Any private hospital can charge the National Treatment Purchase Fund maybe 2,000-3,000 euros. I don't know what the figure is. You can go through.
But Damien, these are political decisions.
I'm not saying it's wrong morally. I'm saying this is a fact.
But this is a political decision. Government has not invested in the public system. Okay, we have waiting lists, which you were discussing earlier today, and where waiting lists are at. We have people who need acute care. We have people who need elective care, and one way of getting that is coming through the private system. Now, if people want to say let's not have a private system, well then let's have a political discussion and fund the public space. But we know where the public healthcare is going at the moment. Over 15 billion this year is going to be spent in public healthcare in this system, and yet the efficiency of our public healthcare system is basically going into crisis. We know what's happening with waiting lists. We know what's happened with recruitment. So we need to have some kind of venting system, and the private healthcare system at the moment is providing that.
It is providing it because of the failings of the public system. You mentioned coronary care. You mentioned also a cath lab and potentially a coronary care unit, a second coronary care unit over there.
Absolutely.
Will that again affect?
No, not with cooperative working, and I think that's what we need to be speaking up. Private healthcare is always going to have a space in the healthcare market for those who can afford to pay for it. And even if the public system takes private out of it, you are still going to have privately aligned healthcare systems in this country. We have to accept that. What we want to do is we want to lift the whole burden of healthcare to an acceptable standard and access for all. And this is one of the ways of doing this. The NTPF last year left 30 million on the table that they could have spent putting patients through diagnostics and otherwise through the private healthcare system. They didn't do that, not because by choice. They cannot get their act and their systems together to do this. So this venting has to happen. We want to take this.
It's a failure of management, is it?
It's a failure of HSE management yet again. The money was provided there to provide elective cases to be done, and it wasn't done. We need the HSE to get their act together. We do need to be venting these low-level diagnostics through the private system at the moment, so that we can take on the heavy burden of work that only the public system can do. You know well, Damien, just look, the obesity...
Public system can do the non-profitable stuff, the stuff that is 24 hours. Like Whitfield's not going to remain open 24 hours because it's not profitable to remain open 24 hours.
Absolutely, it's not profitable, but we need a different conversation in this country. Where are we going?
You mentioned earlier it's about ability to pay. The private system is grand for those that can afford to pay.
Unfortunately,
that's
that is
the heart of this
health
system.
And that is the way it is in everything in life. We need to have a look at how we can address that. Yes, it is, Damien. There are people who drive one type of car and people who drive another type of car. That's down to your ability to pay, okay, and what you're prepared to pay. We need to arrive at a consensus in this country is what is the value of every person's life and what is the dignity that we should give to everybody that they can access timely care, appropriate care. I am all for that, as are you, but I can tell you at the moment, as you know, in the public healthcare system, the lack of funding, the lack of organisation, some of the work practices have caused us to have inordinate waiting lists. Our demographic is going in the wrong direction in terms of the burden of care into the future. We've seen government announce there recently, well, not Leo Varadkar 2 years ago, announced investment for private nursing homes on over 300 million. I can promise you that whatever work the Whitfield Clinic will do in terms of tenders, they will deliver their capital projects within budget. Why can we not do that in the public system? Nobody has answered the question, even back to the Children's Hospital, why are we spending all this money? So it is a political failure, and I think everybody has to understand, healthcare is not going to be solved overnight. There is a massive burden of care. We have obesity, we have ageing, we have diabetes, we have increases in cancer coming, we have environmental toxicity. All of these things are coming into play.
Jim has texted, the cath lab in the private hospital is privatisation by the back door.
It's not privatisation by the back door, okay? UHW is committed. I'm sure everybody down there are committed to delivering 24/7. The second cath lab has to come. I will not be going out cheerleading a second cath lab at Whitfield Clinic. I want the second cath lab delivered at University Hospital Waterford. I want the rota and the staff to come up there to 24/7. That's what we need here. Whitfield can only help to aid that. It can encourage people to come into the marketplace here. It can encourage private doctors to come in and provide public medicine here also.
Make a lot of money.
Look, I can tell you there's not too many people queuing up at the moment in medical space to go and join the consultant ranks. If you think there are, just go and look at the amount of consultant positions on offer at the moment.
Look
at the amount of people leaving the service. And look at the amount of people leaving the service.
And look at the amount of nurses leaving the service.
And look at the amount of nurses. So it's open to anybody there to go and do your 15 years of education so that you can work 60 hours a week.
Well, the
and then see
show
the money
most
paid for
working class people don't get that chance to go become doctors. Doctors come from a particular section of society.
No, they don't. People can go into university now and they can do postgraduately. They can come back into medicine at 22 years of age.
A lot of travellers can't.
Well, I'm not here to speak for travellers, okay? I don't know about travellers, the opportunities for travellers, but I can tell you there are opportunities to get into healthcare, there are scholarships to get into healthcare. But I'd ask you the question to this. If it's such a rosy field, if it's so rosy, go down and talk to the people now who are emigrating out of healthcare in this country and ask them why they're doing it. Go down and ask the nurses who are finishing.
Because of the embargo.
No, it's not only embargo.
There's a massive embargo.
There is an embargo, I agree, but ask the nurses who are
graduating in Waterford.
Ask the nurses who've got 5 years left of pension entitlements who are leaving the service now. Why are they not staying? They have 5 years left to run up. Yes, exactly. So, you're saying on the one hand, it's easy for people to get in and people are making lots of money. If it was such a cushy number, why aren't people running up into the service?
I'm saying in certain private sectors it certainly would be easier because you're doing it on the money basis. Any operation you're doing is obviously a job.
We are spending €15 billion a year, the highest amount of money nearly at this stage in the European Union per capita on our healthcare, and we're delivering a dysfunctional system. You have people in a private system who are basically cherry picking, possibly so, but they are providing a service. Yeah, I would say, but they are providing a service.
If I was that, I'd be doing the same.
And why are we criticising them for it?
I'm not criticising it. I'm saying it's a fact. I'm not criticising it. I'm saying it's a fact. That's the way the system.
Well, it may well be a fact.
And there's nurses over there. There's midwives. There's people working in the hospital a few hundred yards away from us who are under undue stress. Some of them aren't, but a lot of them are because the system is creaking.
I agree with you. I am not disagreeing with you. We are on the same page here. What I am talking about is the benefits of private investment and expansion of a private hospital in the region. It has got nothing to do with what we need for the public system here as well. I'm not saying it's either or. I'm saying it's both. They both have to work cooperatively together. We need to have a look at the way we structure our health services. We all know that. We need to look at the ageing demographic that we have. How are we going to cater to this in the future? How are we going to cater for more people who are retired, less people paying tax? The tax burden is going to rise on people yet to come. So there's a major fix to be done. But I think on the broad aspect of what you're talking about, this is to be welcomed. It's a huge vote of confidence in the South East. I welcome it as that.
What is your view on the legacy of John Déise and the Déise name not being on an election ticket in Waterford for the first time in over half a century?
The last time that I saw Deputy Déise get involved in the University Hospital Waterford issue was in 2013, when he arranged a delegation of which I was a member of to go and meet James Riley at the time. And that is the last time that I'm aware that Deputy Déise has come out in support of our situation at University Hospital Waterford. He welcomed the Hereditary report, which to me was an abject failure of politics in this region. So I'm not in the least bit sorry to see Deputy Déise stepping out.
If there is a general election called, will you be putting your name forward?
I haven't considered that, as I said to you before. I haven't considered it yet. I am where I am.
Councillor Matt Shanahan, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Damien.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
Now, hi Damien, love the show. I had the cataracts removed. It cost me €2,000. Didn't take hours to do it. Went through the private system. A lot of people texting about the lack of funding at UHW and the idea of a second cath lab. Somebody saying, Damien, you shouldn't be negative about a new cath lab. The government is wasting money. At least the private sector will give the service. No wonder so we find it so hard to get outside investment. I'm going to be talking to Darren Malone, USI Vice President, now in a second. Damien, the privatisation of the health service continues unabated. Damien, does Matt believe Whitfield is a non-profit entity? ? This is not true whatsoever. Other people texting and calling in, and 083 3333 975. Now we've got Darren Malone on the line, USI Vice President for the Southern Region. Good morning, Darren.
Good morning, Damien. Thanks for having me.
Not at all. Good to talk to you. And I think we also have Joanna Fortune on the line. Do we have Joanna on the line?
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Joanna. You are psychotherapist and author of 15-Minute Parenting. I'm going to be talking to you about anxiety in a second regarding students. So just have a little listen to what Darren is going to be reporting on. There's a new survey out of college students being published by the USI just in the last few minutes, revealing a whopping 38% of students feeling extreme levels of anxiety, 30% reporting symptoms of depression. Darren, how extensive is this survey?
So, Damien, this survey would have been funded through the HSE and also by the National Office for Suicide Prevention. I think the survey was much needed. It's the first of its kind, and it looks at a broad range of issues, specifically within the student cohort. And we've heard for many years that students are struggling with their mental health, and I suppose we now have these hard-hitting facts that proves that there are students on our campuses that are struggling with their mental health.
And again, so are we talking about, was there hundreds of students interviewed? Was there thousands?
So there was over 3,300 participants with the survey, which was fantastic. So it gives a good overall kind of idea as to what kind of issues students are kind of facing when they enter third level education, but also throughout their college experience as well. It looks at many various factors, from gender and sexuality to their accommodation and financial pressures as well.
And in terms of the buzzword of anxiety, and we'll talk to Joanne now in a second, Joanna, about that anxiety, is it too easy sometimes to lump issues in together under the banner of anxiety?
Well, I suppose students were questioned as to how they felt and what they were experiencing, and as you said, there was over 38% of those were experiencing anxiety. But it also came back that many students were also experiencing high levels of depression and stress. So I suppose sometimes they can be all piled into the one as anxiety, but it's important to realise that many students are experiencing other levels of mental health related illnesses. So I suppose that comes with the pressure of kind of students having the expectation of paying these high costs for fees and accommodation and the day-to-day living during their college experience as well. So these all add into that pressure as well for them.
Okay. Joanna Fortune, can you come in there? As I said, you're a psychotherapist and author of 15-Minute Parenting. Do you believe these stark statistics presented in the USI report? USI is obviously the Union of Students of Ireland. Do you believe that they're accurate?
I do, absolutely. And I welcome any research and reports like this because it creates an opportunity for discussion about something that really does need to be looked at. I think the timing of this report is extremely relevant. There is a huge amount of students now at the moment who've just gotten their heads around the kind of adrenaline rush of leaving cert results and the offers coming out. And that high is now about to hit the reality of this is my new world, this is where I'm going. And really, Damien, that transition from secondary school, which is still, even in the very large secondary schools, it's still a very structured environment where there is a cohort of adults who are there to tell you what to do. You're very much in secondary school, and this isn't a criticism of teachers at all because this is the way the system is, but you are very much being coached to an exam. You are coached to learn and regurgitate information and perform in exams. Now you're going into a world where you are one of, maybe you've gone from one of 30 odd in each individual class to maybe one of 300 in a lecture hall, depending on where you're going. Nobody's going to be spot checking you. Are you coming in? Are you turning in your coursework on time? Very much this is about independence. It's about opinion-based thinking and then being able to substantiate your opinion. You have to read material, understand it, and re-represent it as an of yourself. This is a huge transition for many young adults who are making this jump. And we prepare them up to the leaving cert and getting the results and the offers. We really don't prepare them for this massive transition that's coming. So I'm not surprised to hear that the percentages are so high. I would like just to pick up on something that you kind of inferred there as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I agree insofar as, look, we all have mental health, all of us. It's part of all of our lives. A smaller percentage of us will experience mental illness. Anxiety as a disorder is a clinical disorder and it requires clinical intervention. More people have anxious patterns, they have worries, they have challenges that they may even feel that they can't cope very well with. That doesn't automatically mean, if you're someone who's feeling anxious about a transition, that doesn't necessarily mean, and I don't want people to assume, oh my goodness, now I have an anxiety disorder. If you're concerned about the level of anxiousness you're experiencing and that it's pervasive, it's interfering with your life, go absolutely to your GP as the first port of call and get referred for assessment.
Sorry, Joanna. Yeah, that's a very good point, Darren, that Joanna makes, that there is a difference, a qualitative difference between anxiety and anxiousness.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I suppose college comes with the pressure that students are faced with, I suppose, the financial difficulties, but also with the pressure of exams and assignments and stuff like that. And it is the normal to get stressed, but I think it is quite clear that there is a difference. But I think some students are afraid to even speak about it when they're unsure whether they are anxious during this period or whether they're suffering from anxiety. And I think that's evident within the report, that we see that there's almost a fifth of the participants that felt as if they didn't have anyone to talk to or someone to talk to. Yeah. And I think that just kind of brings it back to the point that there's like an unwillingness to talk because they're afraid that people won't understand or people won't listen, or again, that they'll be judged. So I think that kind of brings it back to that point as well.
With that in mind then, Darren, like the USI has fairly extensive resources. You have welfare officers in each college. Is it in any way a failing of year one procedures, and secondly, two, the communication or inability to get that message out to the main cohort of students?
Absolutely not. I think welfare officers out there on campuses are doing the best they can to make students aware of the supports available on campuses. Many student unions at this time of year are preparing students by providing information and handbooks and guides about where to go if they need help. As I just said, they are doing a lot of work, But I think what the failing is that there needs to be more investment within the area. We're seeing that counselling supports are inundated. There's students that are waiting 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, and like student officers, they're pointing them, they're signposting to these supports. But at the end of the day, if there's a waiting list, or if these counsellors are waiting, or the students have to wait to see these counsellors, I think that's the failing. So there needs to be more investment within this area.
Joanna, you come across it quite regularly, exactly what Darren talks about, the failings of the systems in place and people within those systems looking for help and looking for advice. Yeah. That in itself can cause stress and anxiety, can't it?
Absolutely. And I think if you're in a crisis and you're struggling and you've been brave enough and had the courage to go and say, I need help, and the response you get is great, we'll put you on a waiting list, and, be prepared that could take 18 months before we can get something for you. I can't even imagine how disheartening that must be when somebody's been so brave. I think organisations like USI are doing a tremendous job, handing out information and having welfare officers, but to be fair to USI, I don't think they could possibly cope with the level of demand that this research brings out. That's a huge rise in students who are struggling. And honestly, I think that the approach for this needs to begin before third level. If we know that this many students are struggling with anxiety or anxiousness when making the transition or coping with the third level environment, then we need to begin resilience building and mental health proofing young people in secondary school, so that we're not just preparing them for leaving cert, we're preparing them for life after school, whatever that might be that third level, be that the workforce, whatever young people are doing. I don't think that we're doing them good enough, to be honest with you, the way we just say, right, we got you to the exams, now it's over to you. School is so structured, it's so do as you're told, it's so here's what's expected of you, that to suddenly then go hands off is a huge leap for young people. And I think it's not just anxiety provoking for young people, to be fair. I think it's anxiety provoking for a lot of parents who are trying to make this adjustment with and for their young people as well, young adults. I think this is something that we do need to look at more. I would welcome USI's call that we have further investment in this area, that we have much more counselling and psychology services available, because if we can get in now early, then these young adults don't grow up to be adults who need to flood an adult service, which is also resource depleted. I think we've got to get more proactive than reactive with our mental health services in Ireland. We tend to wait until people are in crisis and then go, gosh, we must do something about that. This is flagging to us that we can anticipate these levels are going to stay high. What are we going to do about it proactively?
Darren?
Yeah, no, I would completely agree that there is more work that's needed to be done as well. But again, it's kind of bringing it back that there is funding needed across the board, because what's happening is that we're signposting these students to these supports, and then when they're getting there, they're being told they're getting these automatic responses that someone will be back to them in 3 to 4 or 5 weeks. And as Joanna said, that is very disheartening. But when it is a crisis, like a student can't wait 3 to 5 weeks, they need to speak to someone now. And I suppose that's where a lot of the work falls on welfare officers, that they're the support in the interim. But welfare officers are only trained to a certain extent. They wouldn't have as much experience or knowledge that a trained psychologist would have. So I suppose we and students, officers, are doing their best. Yeah. But again, there needs to be more investment in the likes of psychologists on campuses, but also like peer-to-peer supports on campuses as well, which will help kind of ease students into the process of becoming a full-time student as well.
That's it. Darren Malone, USI Vice President for the Southern Region, thanks for joining us. Joanna Fortune, lovely talking to you again, psychotherapist. Thank you. And author of 15-Minute Parenting. And we've been listening to the latest survey from USI talking about 38% of students reporting feeling extreme levels of anxiety and 30% symptoms of depression. Any parents that are out there that have students going to college, this next few weeks. Any issues whatsoever, make sure to contact the GP if you do feel that somebody needs to talk about either issues that are there. And there are lots of services. We've got details up on our website. And students themselves, the main thing is talk. Just keep talking, and keep talking to the mammy and the daddy and to your friends. And it is a big change for many people's lives. And the very, very best of luck to all those students in going into college this year. And also this week we've heard this morning of parents sending their young ones off to primary schools, going to secondary schools. The very best of luck to all those and the guardians of those children in the coming term. Coming up, we have a really interesting thing called Spick and Span.
Déise Today with Damien Tiernan on WLR.
With thanks to Mulligan's. Did you know you can collect your Blue Club points online? See mulliganspharmacy.com.
Now, Vicky, Henry and Treacey, good morning.
Morning.
How are you doing?
Great.
Very good. Thanks for joining us. Tell us, we're going to talk about the Waterford City and County Council Operation Spick and Span Awards. I'll start with you, Vicky, because we don't want to give the hard questions to Treacey, do we? No. Tell us about the Spick and Span Awards, Treacey. What are they?
Well, I suppose we launched it as an initiative to kind of maybe draw our communities, our local authority communities in. Maybe we provide them with a little bit of assistance to improve their area, but also they're predominantly doing the work. They're getting out, they're cleaning up, they're planting, and it's kind of about bringing neighbourhoods together, but also it has the environmental positive as well of creating and enhancing a good vibe on the estate for the summer.
OK, so what does it mean in practical terms, Henry?
We've long recognised that there's a lot of good people out there that put their shoulder to the wheel to enhance their estates and so on, and for the betterment of their community. And what we decided to do was actually run a competition to recognise these people, give them some supports as well,
How does it differ from, we'd say, the tidy towns, something like that?
Well, it draws a community more together. It's less formal than the tidy towns. A lot of the estates would have different starting points. We recognise the effort put in by people as opposed to, we say, the end product which the tidy towns would focus on. So it's different in that sense. It also gets people involved, and what we notice as well is there's a cross section of skills. Like there's within all communities, there's painters, decorators, gardeners, and so on. And we noticed that there was a cross section. We had people painting each other's front doors and so on, and people doing each other's gardens and so on. And it created a good buzz around. Plus, from us as estate managers, it gave us a connection with the people. They got to know us. They got to know who to ring in the council. We say
spent a lot of time out there this summer, with people. So
it's the first time. Is the first time, Treacey, it's been done, or has it been done before?
Well, it's the first time we've come together as a team this year. Henry's obviously doing the job a lot more. Myself and Vicky are only in this role with 12 months. But in 12 months, we have been involved with setting up, supporting existing residents' associations and encouraging more people to do the same. We've also supported them in grant applications, which allows them to mow on and carry out all the work themselves. There's huge clean-ups going on in estates. They've availed of local community groups like the Men's Shed to get boxes made up. Many estates have carried out painting, and if you pass the estates, I suppose this summer compared to last year, you can see the amazing work done around the areas. And even just to see the kids and adults come out together, it's a great sense of community. Just
come in a little bit closer to the microphone there, Vicky. Give us a good example. Give me something that
highlight for me probably was I don't know, Paddy Brown's Road. I'm from the city, so I drive Paddy Brown's Road weekly, daily, and the Larchville signs on Paddy Brown's Road, they haven't been planted in so long, and on both sides, Manor St John took one, Larchville took the other side. They've painted them, they've repaired the brickwork, but we needed to get a few bodies on the ground to do the planting. We had a lovely Friday afternoon, and Manor St John Youth Services, Maria Begadan up there, brought down, literally all you could see was these kids coming with their shovels, and we had had the high-vis, I had the environment guys helped out. We unloaded like tons of plants. And if you drive up and down that road now, they have the community guard came, taught the kids to dig the trench. Like, it was a real example of such community coming together. You had so many elements. All the neighbours were out on the road watching, offering us water. Cars were going up and down the road, beeping, shouting, well done. I mean, if ever there was an example of how one small initiative could bring so many positive elements of a community together, then we were leaving and sure all the residents on the road had offered to keep flowering the plot. And I think this is, like, pardon the pun, but this will grow. Like, I think next year what we'll have, all the people that came out and stood and watched and said well done, they will get more involved next year. So you're drawing people out into your community and you're making it better in the most easygoing flow of a way, you know. So
it can be something as simple as that, Henry, can't it?
Absolutely. You know, unfortunately, I mean, a lot of times people come together for the wrong reasons, you know. The part of this initiative is to get people together, we say, for the right reasons. Like, you know, we would have pains to point out that this is your community, this is your home, you know. We are the council, as I say, but we're here to support you, you know. So we were trying to get the people to take the lead on this, and that's exactly what happened. Like, you know.
Because if you don't get them to take the lead, it'll be seen as that's just the council imposing it on us. There has to be this sense of ownership there.
Absolutely.
Treacey?
That's it. And I suppose our role is to encourage people to take pride in the area they live in. And we've seen great work being done, you know, as again, children, adults. And it's about them getting their group together and being able to manage their own estates themselves, come up with their own ideas, hold regular meetings, that everybody has their own voice, everybody has their own opinion, and they're all involved in the decision making on that estate.
And how has that been working on a practical basis? Has it developed in its own little way? You have some areas that would be better than others, maybe.
It has, and I suppose one of my areas is Boher McCudda and Lismore is a prime example. They've secured funding under the Creative Ireland grant. They're currently painting a wall mural under the guidance of a local artist. And they're also working to establish community gardens in the area. So anyone that's in and around there, go in and see the work they're doing. It's fantastic. Another one is Brightview Close in Tallow recently had a 3-day willow hut making day. The mayor attended, did his little bit. He definitely won't have a career in that, but there was a great 3 days had by everybody. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Because there's a lot of things going on, and you do, as I said, it's tidy towns. You got the pride of place, you got different things. This is obviously very specific, as you say, for specific areas that may not involve themselves in some of those big national things.
Yeah. Because that's the big prize, I suppose, and it's especially like what Henry said about everybody has a different starting point. I think the lovely thing about this competition is it's okay if you're starting behind, say, the estate next to you, because it's really only about how far you come. And even more so, even if it's just people getting out on a street together, because if you have neighbours talking, if you have neighbours coming together, we would have some estates that don't have a residents association. There's 2 or 3 of these 30 estates now that are going to form. They've literally formed that residents association while they've been out planting and while they've been ideas grow and relationships grow. And if you have those relationships on an estate, you are less likely to have bother. You're less likely to have disharmony. Do you know what I mean? And you can achieve so much better together, and they're all seeing that now, you know.
And like the thing of involving the children and the children being aware. So if the parents are involved with planting a few plants and they say to the children, don't go touching those now, and they don't, the children then will respond.
Even better if you get the children to plant them. We were out in Bounds Court now, out in Kilcone. The children come out. It's a brand new estate, so they're starting from scratch. They're really only feeling their way, but they've come together wonderfully over the summer and had a couple of planting initiatives. I've been sent in photographs of the kids out with their litter pickers, and they're absolutely loving it and having a glass of water then as a reward. It's lovely to see that, and that's a starting point. And that starting point has untold potential, really, in terms of where that estate can go, you know.
Can you reveal the winners, Henry? No.
You'd have to come to the day on.
We don't know, Damien. It's all the envelope on the day, you know.
You have to come to the day on the Sunday.
So tell us, it's the Gala Family Awards Day. It's going to take place at the RSC.
That's correct. Yeah, on Sunday the 1st, between 1 and 4. All are welcome to attend. We hope to have a big crowd down there. It's a free day. We have a lot of super activities on the day. We have, one of the ones I'm excited about is we have a purpose-built wall. We have a local artist, Lisa Murphy, coming, and just giving the children an opportunity to draw on that wall, which we believe will help with the likes of Waterford walls and so on going forward, but just another thing to mention, Damien, you said about the kids there. Another part of this initiative was to get the kids involved, and some years ago the council had the litter rangers, and we relaunched that regarding with this initiative as well,
Great.
because we know they're juvenile sections of a club, as I say,
That's great. And there's 4 different general criteria, Treacey. General appearance, presentation of the estate, litter control, litter awareness, general environmental projects and new innovative projects. Is it something that you've been happy to be involved with?
Absolutely. I mean, the work that's been done is been amazing. And I think that, as Vicky said, the litter pickers, the jackets and a few sweets for the kids, it's a huge incentive, and them being involved with the planting allows them to take ownership and mind it. No, it's been fantastic. And I suppose even the other thing to realise is that, when this has been judged, the winners may not be the most attractive looking estates, but you have to have regard for the amount of work and effort they've put in, because a lot of these people that have entered are new committees that have been formed this year.
So it's great. No, it really is good. Henry?
And could I also say, the day is also geared as a thank you to everyone who goes out and volunteers. We're quite aware of the effort it takes to go out and volunteer. People are giving their time free of charge, and it sometimes might just get might get a bit of a knock back for it, but we are aware. We feel, us as estate managers, there's a big onus on us to support those people who volunteer, and we have the full support of the council to do that,
Super. Vicky Butler, thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Henry Maloney, thanks very much.
Thank you, Damien.
Treacey.
Thanks, Damien.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in, and the very best of luck on Sunday. Hope you have a great day and good luck with it. It's a fabulous idea. And
you can come down and have a go on the bouncy castle.
Me on a bouncy castle now is not something you want. I was on a whibbit there last week when I was away abroad, and I'll tell you, I was like a sick walrus. That's what I was like. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, folks.
Thanks a lot, Damien. Bye.
Now, thanks everybody for your texts and comments during the show. A packed show. We had Mary Kirwan-Byrne on from Kilmac, daughter of Oliver Kirwan. Our heart goes out to all the Kirwan family. Also a special mention, David Williamson is on about the race around Ireland on your show, travelling through Waterford and Wexford tomorrow. First riders due on Wednesday. Black Box is on the website. Live link. 2,150 kilometres long, cycling 23 hours a day. Best of luck to everybody involved. We are back tomorrow morning. Jeff is up next. Keep it here on WLR.